Hey everyone. So today I'm just going to do a quick tutorial for you on how to interpret some of the error messages that you might encounter when trying to run some R commands or some R code that you've got. So let's get right into the R screen and get to it. So here we are in the R screen. I just want to point you to the fact that if we look up in the top corner here, our environment is empty. I have no objects in there. So imagine I just wanted to look at some value that I think that I had stored in an object called A, and I just run that command A. Now it shows up in the bottom here, object quote A not found. Well, that's because there's actually no objects up in my environment called A. If I did give A some value, like the number 1. Now I do have that object up in the environment and I can run it and it will respond with its value. This would be the exact same thing as if I wanted to maybe look at the contents of a data set that I've got. Heights underscore long. And if I ran that again, it says heights long not found. Well, that's clear because that doesn't exist up in my environment. You might be more likely to run into this if you tried to do some command. Like, for example, you wanted to look at the mean of some value in heights underscore long. So mean of heights underscore long $ height. And if I run that, it's going to do the same thing. It tells me that that doesn't exist. And it may be that I had thought I had loaded that, or I'd opened up a previous project that I'd run and thought it was there. So in this case, you just need to make sure that that object exists, right? In this case, heights underscore long. I now need to create that by doing maybe a read.csv, and then I need to tell it where to find that. Data heights underscore long dot csv, comma, strings as factors equals true is what I usually do in this case. Now when I try to run some kind of command, for example this mean on that, now, because it's in there, it returns an actual value from that data set because that object now exists. So if you run into this error where some object is not found, just make sure that you've got that object loaded into your environment. And if you don't, just make sure you do put it in there. A similar error you might run into is when you don't have a package that's required loaded. So remember that each time we reopen R or our studio, we need to load up all of the packages that we're going to need for that session. So for example, say I wanted to do a command using the flexplot package, flexplot, and then I'm going to do height as a function of 6, data equals heights underscore long. Now, note that this exists, so that should not be a problem. But when I run this command, we see I get an error that says, error in flexplot, could not find function flexplot. Now, what that means is it's installed, but it's not loaded. So remember, each time, even though you have installed a package, you need to load that package in order for it to work. So I need to use the library command, library flexplot, and what that will do is that will load up the package. Another way you can do that is actually just to go down to your packages tab and scroll down until you find the package that you want to load, and then click on the checkbox. Notice that once I've done this command, it's automatically checked and shows that this package has actually been loaded. Now, once that has been loaded, I can then run this command again, and copy and paste that, run that command, and it creates the plot for me that we see behind me here. So like I said, it may be that you don't even have a package installed. For example, imagine I wanted to load up the package R squared MLM, so R squared for multi-level modeling. So I type in library R2 MLM, control enter. Now what I get as an error is it says error in library R2 MLM. There is no package called R2 MLM. So that tells me that it's actually not installed. And then I can go ahead and install that library in case I'm going to need it. So I can use the install or the install packages command. If I just type in install.packages quote R2 MLM and run that, we can see that it's going to load for me and install. Now, if I run that library, it's going to work. It tells me it's loaded up and it's all good to go. You might get a similar error if you try to load a library, but you misspell it. So library, capital S, capital J, plot. And if I try to run that command, it tells me error in library sjplot. There is no package called sjplot. But I know I've got a package called sjplot. It turns out that I've just spelled it incorrectly. And it's not even that I've spelled it incorrectly here. It looks like I've just used the wrong capitalization. So if we go and I type it again, library sj, I start into it, I can see that I've got a few different possibilities. And then we see that no, actually it is lowercase s, lowercase j, capital P plot. So if I pick that one, load that up, then it seems to be okay. But it's given me a little bit of an extra information to tell me if I want to load all of the SJ packages at once, I can do this other command. But we're not going to worry about that because it's not an error. It's actually being able to load up that SJ plot. Another error you might run into is if you try to do a mathematical function on a variable that's actually categorical in some way. So for example, say you wanted to take mean of heights underscore long, and you wanted to, you specified column 6. Now, if I run that, it tells me, warning, the argument is not numeric or logical. It's returning NA. That just means that, well, sex is M or F in this case, male or female, and there's no way to average that. You can't take a mean of male and female. Well, just like you can't take a mean of any categorical variable. It doesn't make sense. So in order to do the correct thing, you need to take a mean of a numeric variable like height, and we don't get that error. Finally, one other common error that you might run into is when you're trying to load in a CSV file and you tell it the file name you want. So I want to use this command here, this heights long read CSV. But if I told it the wrong path to it, I just tell it the file name and I run that command, it's going to say error in file, cannot open the connection. In addition, warning message, cannot open file heights long CSV, no such file or directory. That means it's either that that file doesn't exist or you've told it the wrong location to find that. Now, if you just tell it that file, the file would have to be in your current R project folder. Otherwise, if you've got a folder underneath your R project like I do called data, you could tell it it is in the folder data and then find heights long CSV. It will then be able to find that and I don't get an error. You might get a similar error. I'm going to copy and paste this. If you just did something like you typed the name wrong. If you put a 0 instead of an O in long, and I try and run that, it's going to tell me no such file or directory. So one of the problems you might have is simply checking the name of the file and that you've actually specified the actual spelling correctly and you've specified the way it's supposed to be and exactly where it's supposed to be. All right, I hope that gives you an idea of some of the error messages that you might come across when using R and how to interpret them and what you can do about them. The key is try to read what the error message is, find out where the problem occurs, and then go in and try and fix that problem. If all else fails, it's really easy to input that error onto Google, and maybe someone online has already run into that similar type of error and they'll be able to help you out as well. All right, see you next time.